All right, so today I wanted to talk about a tweet and the idea behind the tweet that I put out the other day. And it was simply, winners anticipate, losers react. And this is a very important concept that I think not nearly enough people understand and not nearly enough people practice in their day-to-day life. And you probably know what I mean, but I should explain what I mean here. And what I mean is, winners anticipate, meaning they are constantly thinking ahead. Number one, they're thinking ahead. Again, Patrick Bet-David's new book, your next, or I think it's not his new book, but arguably his most famous book, your next 5 moves. Again, the whole idea is thinking ahead, planning ahead. That is what successful people do. On the other hand, I think another very important thing is when things go wrong, they're very good at reflecting as to why things went wrong and creating a new plan to get ahead, right? That's what I mean by that. And what I mean by losers react, and again, this isn't the perfect way of putting it. I understand that. Anyone who's pointing that out, it's like, whatever. It's a stupid critique if that's what your critique is. But again, by reacting, that means that, again, you're constantly behind the curve. Bad things happen and you have no idea why it happens. And on top of that, not only do you have no idea why it happens, but you come up with solutions that are terrible solutions, that are simply reactions. This is probably the main reason, one of the main reasons why things are so messed up politically these days, is that a lot of the policies that are being implemented are not doing anything, and they're based in politicians just gaining power and punishing their enemies, or again, it's a reaction of a failed policy, right? I mean, let's just give a simple example, right? Politicians, housing's a big issue, right? Oh, well, housing's too expensive. So what did politicians do? Rather than recognize the actual reasons behind it, it's let's impose rent control. Let's impose this tax and this regulation. But again, that is a losers react situation, because again, if you understand basic economics, you know that does not work. You need to figure out what caused the problem in the first place and implement realistic solutions. But again, they're creating these reactionary solutions. And that's another distinction here, is winners are very good at looking at the big picture, right? Looking at the big picture. And again, this is economics 101. This is why I'm pointing this out. Economics could basically be described as looking at the big picture. People who don't understand economics think of things in this binary, short-sighted, we're only going to look at one factor out of 10 or 20 or 100 different factors. We're only going to narrowly focus on this one thing. And that's why people get things wrong. And the same thing happens here in business as well. And same thing happens in everything. And people aren't smart enough to connect the dots. And that's the one thing that, again, vast majority of people are not born to do this kind of stuff. You have to learn it. And it's a never-ending struggle, frankly. It's never, ever going to end. You have to constantly trying to improve. And you need to deal with reality. Another very important thing, this is probably what makes one of the most important things when it comes to investing, is you need to deal with things the way they are rather than the way you want them to be. And this is another big mistake that people make politically, is that they want things to be a certain way and all their policies are geared at wanting them to be a certain way when they're not actually like that. You need to deal with reality on the ground, not some made up thing or how you want it to be, how you imagine it to be. You need to deal with the reality. A lot of people, they want this certain investment to do good, or they believe the hype, right? They believe hype, and that's another big mistake people make. So again, the point here is very simple. Learn to anticipate. And a lot of times it's not really that hard, right? Personally, I made not a crazy amount of money at all, right? But a decent amount of money. I mean, the return was very good, but a decent amount of money shorting bonds right before the Fed jacked up rates. And my point here is quite simple in that they were telling you they're going to raise rates. Like they're telling you. So in my mind, it was a very easy trade. You know, people say, okay, well, they're saying they're going to lower rates right now, but so you should go long bonds. The problem with that is the timing can be hard. That's the hard thing. But what I would point out there is over the last, 3 or 4 months, the amount of cuts has been consistently been lowered, and the timing has consistently been pushed back. So personally, I would probably hold off on that, my personal opinion. But again, nobody knows. So that's the very important thing. Again, being in shape, it's all about anticipating. Planning ahead. This is what my diet's going to be. This is what my workout schedule is going to be. This is what I'm going to do. Same, again, business. This is just basic business 101. Your finances. I want to buy a house in a year. This is how much money I'm going to need for a down payment. This is how much money I have. What's the difference? Or do I have it already? Again, like, to a lot of people, this is just basic stuff. Like, why are you bringing this up? But frankly, the majority of the population does not understand this. So that's why I'm bringing it up. And again, there's so many examples. And again, look, a good way to learn about this stuff again is look at the past. Look at these events and look at these. Look at stocks. Look at stocks that have done really well. What's the commonality? Look at things that have happened. Connect the dots, and when those events start to happen in the future, be like, hey, I remember this one. That's how you do it. And don't react too. Again, another thing that a lot of people, that the loser crowd, for lack of a better way of putting it, is, again, they're constantly in this hyper emotional reactionary state because they haven't prepared. Right? I mean, take the stock market for now. I'll just give a perfect example here. I have a plan for over the next year. Anything that happens, I already know what I'm going to do. If we had a massive crash tomorrow, the Fed more than likely would be lowering rates, probably by quite a bit. I have a whole bunch of money waiting in bonds. The value will go up. I will sell, and I will put the money into stocks. If the market continues to go up or stays flat, I will simply just add to my bond position, knowing that rates probably will stay the same, or at the very least, they will be cut by a very small amount, and you'll keep getting that 5, 6, 7% yield. If the market comes down 5%, I'll probably sell off 20, 30% of that cash / bonds, put it in the market. If it goes down 10%, probably 50 to 60%. Again, I don't have an exact amount, but I don't think that's the point. If the market zooms higher, okay, well, it's very simple. You just keep buying bonds, keep building those positions, and wait for a correction. There are some stocks that I'm buying right now. I'm not saying I'm buying literally nothing. The amount is just a lot less than normal, right? So again, that's a clear example. If we have a crash, I already know what's going to happen. If the market goes up, I already know what I'm going to do. If the market stays flat, I already know what I'm going to do. If we have a 5% pullback, I already know what I'm going to do. 10%, I already know what I'm going to do. Anything more than that, everything goes in. Even if it goes down another 10%, doesn't matter. If it goes down 30, 40, 50%, doesn't matter. By the time we hit that 15 to 20%, I'll be all in. Right? Again, but in hindsight, obviously there's going to be a better strategy in hindsight. But looking forward, I think that's the perfect strategy. And again, if you look at history, every year I think we get something like 3 or 4, 5% pullbacks, like 1 or 2, 10% pullbacks. I think roughly 115, and then probably every second or third year you get a 20% pullback. So again, odds are extremely likely you're going to get a 10% pullback at one point. Therefore, especially when the market's overvalued, it's a good idea to have that cash ready to go. If it doesn't happen, well, you're getting paid 5, 6, 7% to wait. right? So that is precisely what I mean. Have a plan for every, and again, there's black swan things. There could be, again, I don't think it's realistic to do that. But again, a 20% crash, that's realistic. The market going up another 20%, right? Probably unlikely in the next 6 months to a year, but it could happen. So anything that can realistically happen that isn't completely out of nowhere, you should have a plan for it. And because that's what winners do. So anyway, that's what I wanted to bring up today. If you liked the video, please like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more.